guys, today we are going to be making a relief sculpture using copper, and we're going to go over the first few steps that you need to follow first in order to be successful in this project. To start off with, you're going to get a piece of copper sheeting that looks like this. Okay, your size is going to be about 6 inches by 6 inches. Okay, you're going to take this and you're going to be very, very careful because, so copper obviously is a metal, and metal can have very sharp edges sometimes. So you want to be very, very careful with the corners here and with the edges. Okay, so this is why we have to have our sign syllabus turned in, okay, before we get started on this project. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to work on folding the corners back. Okay, so I'm looking here and I already have done a couple of them. And the reason why we want to fold those corners back is because then I can actually touch the side here without worrying about scratching myself. You can still kind of poke yourself with a corner a little bit, but it's not as big of a deal. Okay, so you want to be very careful while you're using this. Okay. So the two sides that I already have done here, you can see those. Okay, and they're all on the same side. So the next two that I'm going to show you guys here on this video, we want them to also be coming to the same side. We don't want half on this side and half on this side. Okay, this is going to be the back of our copper. This is going to be the front of our copper. Okay, so the next side that I need to do is this space down here to fold this edge over. I'm going to follow these steps. Okay, so I'm going to flip it over so I'm looking at the front side. Okay, and I'm going to move the camera down here. Okay, so you can see the edge of my desk, my table right here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this copper and I'm going to slide it down here so that it overlaps a little bit. Do you guys see the space down here? So we don't want a huge amount. You don't want a big chunk of copper gone because then you're cutting off a ton of workspace for yourself. Okay, but you don't want to do a super tiny amount either because this is really, really hard to fold over because copper is a lot heavier than you think that it might be. Okay, so we kind of want to find the medium spot here. Okay, and that looks like it's about 1/4 of an inch. Okay, I'm not going to actually measure, but you can see right here how far out it's sticking from the table. Now, I'm going to make sure that whenever I'm handling the copper, I'm not swiping anything with my finger because that's a really good way to cut or slice yourself open. Okay, so I'm going to take this. I'm just going to carefully press and fold it over. Let's get down here a little bit more. Okay, so I'm just pressing this on the edge here like this. Okay, no swiping. Okay, I'm just folding it over like this. Okay, I am going to kind of press down a little bit here on this edge here, like this. Okay, and then whenever I'm finished with this, here, you can see that it's been folded, and so it kind of has like an L shape to it. Okay. Okay, now I'm going to take this and I'm going to finish folding it over very carefully. Again, I'm not wiping my fingers across, I'm just pressing. Okay, it's very important that we don't do any swiping like this because it's a really good way to hurt yourself. Okay, so I have this here and I'm going to just kind of press this down a little bit further. Okay, so if you look, it looks pretty decent, but the edges, I still have a little bit of a bump here, but this back side is a little bit kind of messy. And so I want to make this even better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pencil right here, and I'm going to use this metal part of my pencil right here, and I'm going to hold my copper. I'm going to take my pencil, and on the metal part, I'm going to use that to wipe across here. Okay, so I'm going to start in the middle of my copper, and I'm going to go one direction here over the corner. Sometimes the corners can be a little bit harder once you have a couple layers going, but so I've done from here up. Okay, now if you look, it's kind of hard to see, but from here over, the copper looks thicker on the edge, and from here over, it's much thinner and smoother because it's been pressed down with the pencil. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing on this one. So I'm going to bring this and I'm going to pull this down here just like that. Okay, so it's nice and flat, it's smooth, and then now I can do this without any issue. Again, the corners might still be a little pokey, even if it's been folded over, but right here, not as big of a deal. Okay, now I have 3 sides done. I'm going to do my last one down here. Okay, so remember, I'm folding it back, so I need to make sure I'm looking at the front of my copper. I'm going to pull this down here a little bit, make sure it's the right distance for me. Okay, so about right here. Then I'm just going to start pressing over the side. I'm pressing, I'm not wiping, I'm just pressing. Just like this. Okay, then I'm going to take this. Remember, we have that kind of L shape here. And then I'm going to finish pressing it over the sides just like this. Okay, so I'm pressing down here. And then I can take my pencil starting in the middle and I'm going to work my way. So again, I'm holding it and I'm going to move this direction here. And then I'm going to move the opposite direction here. Okay, so this is the very first step. Now, step 2 I actually already have done. Okay, but step 2 is to write your name on the back and your hour. Okay, you want to use a Sharpie for this. Whoops. And you want to make sure that you're using a marker Sharpie because when you write on it, if you're using one of these smaller pieces, it can wrinkle your copper up and then you'll see it imprinted on the other side. And that's not what we really want to have happen for us. Okay, so you want to make sure you're using the marker side. So we're going to write our name here and we are ready to move on. Okay, so now that we have our edges folded over, step 1. Step 2, we have our name on the back in Sharpie. Step 3 is to take your picture, like so. Okay, this one has already been folded over, but you want to take your picture and you want to fold it so that only the paper goes all the way down here. Sorry, the picture goes all the way down here. So that it'll be at the edge of your copper. That way we don't have any like mysterious floating torsos, right? We want it to be at the edge of the copper here. Okay, so I'm going to fold this over like this, and I'm going to make sure that I'm putting this on the front of my copper. Okay, so the front of my copper is where the picture is going to go, and then the back of my copper, of course, has these edges and this my name on the back, of course. Okay, so I'm going to place this right in here so I can see my name, and then I have the front right here with my picture on it. And I'm going to kind of center my copper on this picture. Okay, I still think it needs to come over just a tiny bit, so I'm going to move that over here. Okay, now for this one, I just have to tape over the top and the bottom, right? So this one is folded over here, and I'm going to take some masking tape. You're going to get one piece, but you can tear it into smaller pieces, and you're going to secure this here. Okay, just like this. Okay, so this is step 3 right here. Okay, done, step 3. Now, one of the things you want to keep in mind is whenever you're working on this, make sure that you do not take your picture off until you have permission. Okay, if you take your picture off early and it wasn't time for it to come off, trying to put the picture back on in the exact same place is extremely difficult. Like it's nearly impossible to do it quite right. Okay, and that will end up making your copper not come out the best that it can. Okay, so this is what it looks like to get it taped up. I'm going to show you my example that I have that's already been taped up. Okay, this one right here. And you'll notice that this one, instead of being taped to the bottom and the top, because of how it's printed, I have the torso going to the edge of my copper. Okay, but for me, I had to fold the bottom side and then the bottom part and then the 2 sides in and secure those with tape. Okay, in order to get that to stay. I didn't really have to tape up here. Okay, so your mileage may vary on that. Okay, so we have step 3 done. We're ready to move on to step number 4. Step number 4, you're going to take your copper with the paper on top of it, and you're going to get a foam tray. A foam tray is extremely important for this part because the foam tray is what allows you to make indentions on your copper, which is what we're starting with. Okay, so you're going to have your copper here, you're going to have your pencil, and you're going to start outlining, pressing down with really hard pressure. Okay, some people find that standing up helps them apply more pressure to their copper. Okay, so you're going to start going through here, and you want to make sure the whole entire time that you are kind of coloring along the same line. Okay, you don't want to have a line that is very wide. Okay, you want to color along the same line the whole time. So I kind of go back and forth like this, the same direction. Okay, and then you want to make sure too that you're connecting all those lines. Sometimes when people are tracing things, they'll trace like a little, it's like a dotted line almost. They trace and they just make little dashes like this, and they kind of pick it up every time. But what we want is a nice solid outline here. Okay, so it's okay if you kind of start that way, but then make sure you're going back and smoothing it out between it to connect it. Okay, let's see what that looks like on paper. Okay, so when you're outlining, you want to make sure that you are following the same line like this. Okay, for the outline. Okay, what you don't want to have happen is for this. Okay, you don't want it to be thick like this. You want it to be nice and thin along the exact same line the whole way. Okay, you also don't want it to be sketchy. So sometimes it looks like this. Okay, we don't want sketchy like that. So if you need to make kind of shorter lines first to start off with, that's okay, but then go back and go over it a couple of times using your pencil to make it nice, one nice solid line. Okay, so on mine here, I'm drawing along here and I'm pressing down nice and hard. Okay, I'm using a pencil that has been sharpened but isn't too sharp. Okay, so sharpened but not too sharp, because too sharp doesn't really help you out that much here. You just don't want it to be super duper dull. Okay, so I'm going to bring this down here and I'm going to go over every single line really, really hard. Okay, you want to make sure that you're maintaining control for this, because if you do mess up, there isn't really a whole lot to fixing the outline. We can kind of try to work with it, okay, but you can't erase it. So I'm going over all of the lines that I have here, okay. So then, whenever I turn my copper over, okay, when I turn my copper over, you can start to see some of this outline happening, okay? And I'm gonna show you here very carefully so I don't lose my place, okay? But do you guys see this line that's forming? This is from my pencil, okay? So at this point, you don't want to move on to the next step, which is gonna be in the next video, until I have said, hey, that looks good, you're good to go, okay? So do not move on just yet until you have approval from me, okay? Because you want to make sure that your lines are nice and sharp, okay? So that means you're pressing down super hard and you're showing the copper who's boss, okay? So this is for part 1.